You're listening to Sacks in the Basement, a production of the Broadcast Basement Limited, where every show is 30 minutes of good and comes from a basement bar on the south side of Chicago. Pull up a stool, pour a cold one, and join us right now for Sacks in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at sacksinthebasement.com. Welcome into the basement. My name is Chris. That's Dave, sitting at the other end of my 9-foot homemade oak bar in my basement on the south side of Chicago. This is Sacks in the Basement. Over 2 years of two fans who grew up across the street from each other on the south side of Chicago on the 8,000 block of Spalding, and rooted for the White Sox since they were little tykes. And Dave cleaned out some of his memorabilia last week and brought over some baseball cards. Didn't realize that he handed over a bunch of Frank Thomas rookie cards to his godson, his nephew. Did you even check the cards before you dropped them off? You'll hear this at the end of last show. It's amazing. But Dave brought over memorabilia. Did you even know what you dropped off here?
No, I did not. I thought they were just giveaways from the ballpark.
You had the complete Topps set from the year that Frank is a rookie. But then you also handed out you gave him this 1990 giveaway, a complete set of 1990 baseball cards, which has, what I read online, the rarest Sammy Sosa card available. It was worth a lot more before they found out that he was a steroid user, okay, because it has Sammy in the uniform, and it also has Frank Thomas top prospect before he's ever gone out and played a game for the White Sox, included in the set. And it's one of the rarest Frank Thomas cards around because it was a giveaway.
Well,
and this kid is looking it up online, telling me how much money it could be worth. And I'm like, yeah, that's if you could find somebody to pay it. But he was like super excited. And you're never going to see those cards again. They've been hidden from me.
Interesting. I thought, my bad. I thought those cards being giveaways were not worth anything. So, I mean, because what do you get at what do you ever get at a baseball as a giveaway at a baseball game that's ever worth anything?
I think that the reason that it's valuable is because like people started saving their baseball cards, right? So remember when we were younger, parents would make these stories. They would tell you these stories like, oh, I had this great baseball card collection. That's what my dad used to always say. And then my mother threw them all out. And I had this and I had that. My mother threw them all out. But our generation that grew up, maybe born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s, teenagers in the 90s, when we collected cards, we put them in like special cases and I had that. I had like special cases on my Ken Griffey Jr. rated rookie card. Like I have all of that stuff still.
Oh, man.
But it's not worth that much because everybody was doing it. So it's the rare stuff. It's the fact that Thomas hadn't signed his Topps rookie card very often. So it's actually worth more signed than unsigned. It's the fact those giveaways, because nobody has those anymore, right? Half of them ended up laying on the ground when a kid was playing with them during the game. Like nobody's got a complete set of those.
Right.
So those become the rarest items. And I think that's where it comes from. So the kid struck gold, man. He did a cartwheel. He was like super excited.
Well, that's he can remember, when I'm old and frail and I need, and I need help, in my old age, because
remember that.
He's going to have to remember that. Yeah. Because I don't have any kids, so I don't have anybody to help me out when I get old and broken and bad. So, and frail. So yeah, it's going to be my godson helping me out.
You're a good uncle. Sacks in the Basement is brought to you proudly by Family Waterproofing Solutions. They're on the southwest side. They cover all of northern Illinois and northwest Indiana. Anything from your foundation on down through your basement, they handle it. And check them out. Tell them that you heard all about them on Sacks in the Basement. They'll take money off your deal and give you some great offers. FAMWS.com. We had Scott Merkin on Saturday. We now have 2 shows a week. Sometimes it's live on Saturdays. Sometimes it's just a half-hour interview where I sit down and talk with somebody about White Sox baseball. So that was Sacks in the Basement Saturdays. Merk was on for the entire show. Some really interesting things. If you missed it, go back, check it out. Remember, you got to be subscribed. I'm finding out now that Facebook changed their algorithm again. So if you used to sit around on Facebook and wait for me to post the show, you're not getting it every week. Trust me, we're still doing them every week. We're now doing them twice a week. I haven't seen a real bump with the numbers, but I've learned about this, that Facebook changed some algorithms. So make sure that you are subscribed so you never miss an episode. But Scott talked about some great stuff. I mean, Merk was on the ball. One of the questions that he answered was, what's going on with Yohan Moncada? He told us specifically he got the answer from Yo-Yo's mouth, and that is, it's still COVID. He has not felt right since the illness. That's what's going on with his legs. There's a weakness there, and he blames it on the illness. So that's straight from Yoan Moncada to Scott Merkin. That was revealed on Saturday on this show.
Moncada has been pretty public about it the past week or so. I remember hearing Stoney talk about it also on one of the games. I can't remember which one. But yes, the fatigue that he's experiencing is a result of the virus or whatever lingering after effects of the virus. Specifically lower body, the legs, I've heard.
Yeah.
So
it's very interesting. He also kind of broke down the Reynaldo Lopez and the path to Raylo ending up back in Schaumburg. He covered an awful lot of things. Go back and check out some of the stuff that he talked about. Ricky Renteria would have to do something horrible to lose his job, because I specifically brought up the Chris Zwick Yahoo Sports recommendation. The White Sox go out and get a new manager, and Merck kind of laughed at that and was like, I don't see it. Not the way that they love him. And so there's a lot of different things that we talked about. Go back and check out that interview. The Sox have been good this week, though.
Yes.
The Sox have been basically in first place, alone or tied in first place, or a half game back. We're in the middle of an actual race. We're going to the postseason.
Yes.
And I think that it's time for us to kind of start to wrap our minds around the fact we're going to the postseason.
Oh,
There's
I
only
have.
a couple of weeks left,
No,
and now we have to prepare for it.
I have, Chris. And I'm going to tell you, I am very happy. Look, I'm not going to be negative. The White Sox have been playing amazing baseball. They're doing what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be beating bad teams. Remember, we talked about this at the beginning of the year. We saw all of those games with the Royals, Tigers, Pirates, and Reds. And we're like, all right, this is it. Let's get fat. Let's get happy. Let's eat, right? And that's what they've done. They have beat up on these bad teams, which is what good teams are supposed to do. The things that bother me about the playoffs just a little bit, the things I'm concerned about, that I'm worried about. You've lost a couple of very close games to the Twins and the Indians, who you're going to see in the postseason. These are games you probably could have won had you had a better lineup out there or better in-game decisions. You know, when Merck talks about how Renteria is not going anywhere, that raises my concern level a little bit, because you can't afford to give away games in a 5-game series. So are these mistakes going to be continuing to happen in the postseason? Like that's what worries me, Chris, the most.
Well, the most interesting thing is this. The first round of this crazy playoffs is 3 games. And you've played 2 3-game series against the Indians and 2 3-game series against the Twins, and you have lost all 4 of those series.
Yes.
You've been unable to take 2 out of 3, and you're going to have to take 2 out of 3 from a team like that, or one of those teams directly. In fact, I think if the playoffs would have started yesterday or 2 days ago, it would have been Sox Twins in the first round, and we've played them in 2 2-game series, and we've lost both times. And both times we had our 1 and our 2, and then Reynaldo Lopez for some reason is our 3 against the Twins. So the Sox still have to solve that. They have a 4-game set against Minnesota here in the final couple weeks, and a 4-game set against the Indians. They also have a 3-game set against the Cubs, a 3-game set against the Reds, a 3-game set against the Tigers, and 2 right here in the middle of the week against the Pittsburgh Pirates. That's the rest of the season right now. Get fat and happy off of guys, but I've yet to had it proven to me that they're going to beat a team in a 3-game series that is of the caliber of a playoff team. They're having a hard time against the higher up, upper echelon American League teams right now.
I was going to say American League, because remember, they did clobber the Cubs.
They did.
And they clobbered them twice and then lost a close game at the end. But the Cubs are not going to be scouting the White Sox as heavily as the Indians and the Twins do.
Well, they know us better. The one advantage that you're going to have here is you're going to run into teams that we don't know what the West is compared to the Central. We don't know what the East is compared to the Central. We're not playing each other.
No.
So this is all like, it's very hard to compare, like, what's the better division. That you don't have any idea who the better teams are, and it's going to be one of these weird things you're going to walk into. I looked, Dave, if you'll indulge me for a moment.
Of course.
I looked at some of the teams we could possibly end up playing. And one of the things that I wanted to figure it out, I went to an interesting place that just looks at statistics and tries to figure out things not only in sports, but in politics, 538. 538's a website. They try to predict who's going to win presidential elections. They try to predict who's going to win, the Kentucky Derby. They use all these different stats and metrics to try to figure things out. They have the White Sox essentially looking at where they have the American League standings ending up when it's all said and done. It looks like the White Sox could be up against one of the following 4 teams: the Astros, the Blue Jays, the Twins, or the Yankees. These are the 4 teams, most likely, according to them, if I'm looking at their standings and looking at how the playoff grid works.
This is they put this out just recently, or this is before the...
They put out every day the probability of where a team is going to finish in the standings.
Okay.
So based upon today, their probability, looking at the record ahead of each team and where they think they're going to finish, they have the White Sox finishing second, a game behind the Indians, with the Twins getting the 3rd spot in the Central.
Interesting.
Okay. Here's the thing that's interesting. I want to look just at pitching staffs and who we would have to face in the first 3 games. I think we should have Giolito, Keuchel. I don't know who's 1, who's 2. I don't care. But they're the first 2.
Right.
Okay. And then I think it's Dunning. It could be Cease. That's all you got for that first series.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have to make that decision. And you're going to have to flip things around because right now, if things remain the way that they're set up, Giolito and Keuchel pitch on the last 2 days of the regular season and would not be available to start game 1 or 2 in the postseason. So you're going to have to do some bullpen days and some things to flip things around to get the right guys lined up for game 1 and game 2.
Well, thankfully, the last 3 games of the year are versus the Cubs, which, are not meaningless games by any stretch. There's no meaningless games in a 60-game season. However, they are not divisional games. So if Renteria is smart, that's when you do it.
So now I'm looking at who could be the 3 starters facing us for these other teams. Let's look at the Astros.
Provided they're not in tight divisional races and they get the opportunity to set up their pitching the right way.
Let's talk about this. If everybody in the first round is playing 3 games against each other, then who cares what your seeding is? Wouldn't you want to have your pitching set? Does it really matter if you're the 8th seed or the 7th seed? Does it really matter?
In a 3-game series, yeah. No, I guess.
Does it really matter where your seeding is?
Home field doesn't make a difference anymore.
But in the postseason, they're going to be playing in a bubble and everybody's in the same ballpark.
Right.
So everybody's playing in the same ballpark, it sounds like. So there's no advantage.
So they're doing it like hockey was doing.
That's what they're going to do for the postseason. So you're going to be in the same ballpark the entire time. There's no advantage to being home field, except for last bats.
Right.
And unless you really care about the banner that says division more than you care about if you're going to do well in the first round of the postseason, then you should be making sure that your top 3 pitchers are ready to go for games 1, 2, and 3.
Well, I guess what I'm talking about are maybe not division winners, but bubble teams. Teams that are, trying to make those last 2 wild card spots.
I get that, but I don't know how many of them there actually will be. There's a big difference right now. I know the Tigers are close to the Yankees right now. You could believe that maybe they're going to get back in. I just don't see it. I think the 8 that are in right now are all going to be in.
There's going to be, right.
In the end, I just don't see how it's not these original 8. These 8 that are currently in it that have been in it now for the last couple of weeks that have been in the playoff picture.
Right.
I guess I'm operating under the assumption it's going to be these 3.
Okay.
That's kind of how I feel. So looking at the Astros, Zach Greinke is a right-handed, amazing pitcher. We're going to have a lot of trouble against him.
That's not somebody that you...
Right.
Yeah, no, that's
Justin Verlander is still a possibility to come back, even though he hasn't pitched all year for them. Their best pitcher so far to this point has been Framber Valdez, a young man who's got a 3.61 ERA and a whip of 1.20, fielding independent pitching of 3.02. In fact, Greinke's actually been better than him. Those are probably your top 3. There's a pitcher by the name of Christian Javier, who's got a whip under 1 right now and is 4-2, but his fielding independent pitching is 5.35, which indicates that he's been more lucky than good.
Sorry, back up, Chris, to interrupt you. The third guy, lefty or righty?
Lefty.
Lefty. Okay.
So you have 1 lefty and 2 amazing righties.
Right.
The White Sox are currently 500 against righties.
And undefeated against lefties.
And undefeated against lefties.
13-0 now, I think it is.
So the idea is, I think you got 1 win because of the lefty, but then can you pull off a win against possibly Greinke and Verlander? These are the things I'm looking at. Okay?
Well, I guess it would depend on what Verlander you're getting because, you're getting a Verlander who's just now coming back for the postseason. I mean, I would
$100. I'm just gonna put you on the spot. Do you think the Sox can win that? Just looking at the pitching matchup and what the White Sox have done at this point, 500 against right-handed pitching.
A game against Verlander?
A game against Verlander.
Or are you
Greinke,
talking about
the
a series in which Verlander pitches?
If I told you had to bet, who would you bet would win that? Just looking at the pitching matchup and what the White Sox have done against right-handed.
It's not a good matchup for the White Sox at all. But again, I would have to put the asterisk on that. Are you going to get Verlander, and what Verlander are you going to get? So you could squeak out a win against him. Yes. Greinke would be a tough one.
Sox in the Basement listeners, do the hard work. And if you're a hardworking man or woman on the South Side, you need to be outfitted properly. And that's why you should visit Red Wing Shoes in Evergreen Park and New Lenox, a work boots specialty store that carries sizes from 6 to 16 and feet as wide as 4E. A 115-year-old company that came out of Red Wing, Minnesota, and one of its largest stores in the entire Midwest is in Evergreen Park, Illinois, ever since 1976. When you're on your feet, the footwear is everything. So why not get an expert fitting? They warranty, repair, and offer free conditioning with laces. And they also carry Carhartt work clothing as well. Located at 3347 West 95th Street in Evergreen Park, Illinois, with a sister store available to you at 208 East Maple Street on Route 30 in New Lenox. Visit them today. You work hard. You've earned it. Red Wing Shoes. Let's take a look at the Toronto Blue Jays. Just a quick look at the Blue Jays. I would predict that they would send out Ryu, who's a lefty, so I feel good about that. They actually acquired 2 pitchers. And this might be what they're trying for. One, they acquired Taijuan Walker from the Seattle Mariners, and he's been very, very good. He's a young right-handed pitcher who I think will give the White Sox some trouble. Robbie Ray's a lefty, and he's had a bad year. They went out and picked him up. Tanner Roark is a middling right-handed pitcher. Matt Shoemaker is a middling right-handed pitcher. Chase Anderson doesn't scare me at all. So with that team, I'd say you're going to beat the lefty that's good because you beat up on lefties. Until you can prove to me that the White Sox can't beat up on lefty pitching, I don't care what caliber of lefty pitching they run up against, they find a way.
Right, and you could probably squeak out a win against one of those righties.
But
so it's
Walker's going to give you a hard time, but the third guy ain't going to be that great.
It's a way better matchup for the Sox.
Okay, so I like the Blue Jays matchup because I'm trying to figure out, like, who would you be rooting for? Who do you really want to face? I don't want to face the Twins. I know it sounds terrible to say it, but that's another possibility. Of the 4 teams we have not beaten them in either one of our 3-game sets. And unless we could take this 4-game series, a split would give you some hope maybe, but I mean, you would need to take 3 out of 4 from them for me to feel super confident going into a playoff series with them, a best of 3. If they are able to set up and we're able to set up with our best going against them, we've already seen that they're able to find a way to beat us. We were nervous. We kicked the ball all over the place in that first game of that 3-game series last week. We didn't look confident. We looked like a young team.
It looked like a young team in the playoffs for the first time was what it looked like.
And it's going to get even more intense. See, that's the thing. This is why it's hard to imagine a team going from what the White Sox were last year record-wise and imagining them going deep into the playoffs because they're going to have to get over that nervousness.
I've thought about that, but there was a 4th team you wanted to look at?
New York Yankees.
New York Yankees.
I'm not even looking at the Minnesota thing because I already know what the Sox have done against them. The Yankees. Now, the Yankees are interesting. It's going to be Garrett Cole. He's a right-hander. He's amazing. It would have to be a pitcher's duel. We'd have to see, lights out Giolito against Cole and finding a way to win a game 2-1. That's going to be a tough game.
Which you could do because, Giolito could give you that pitcher's duel. He could do it.
Their second best pitcher is clearly Masahiro Tanaka, who just happens to be another really good right-handed pitcher. You've already run into 2 of them so far, and those are their 2 best pitchers. Then it's going to be a toss-up as to who they're going to send out their third. Every one of their other starters that are probably the guys they would throw out there would be Montgomery, Happ, or Paxton. And all of them are lefties. So, and I don't even know if Paxton will be available. That guy's constantly injured. I don't even remember what's going on with him right now, but there's no guarantee that he would even be available. You're going to get 1 lefty, and you're going to run into 2 really good righties. It's very similar to what the Astros are going to throw at you.
Right.
So in reality, you're almost hoping to play the Blue Jays, as hot as they are right now, if you're just looking at pitching matchups. Right now, as of the moment that we're recording before the Pirates series begins, if the playoffs started on this date, the Sox would play the Blue Jays.
Okay.
And so it's a very realistic possibility. But if you ask me right now, just looking at pitching matchups and looking what the White Sox have done against lefty and righty pitchers this year, and it's so stark. It's so 500 against righties, undefeated against lefties.
Right.
Amazing.
You would need to get a stellar pitching performance from either Dallas or Lucas in order to get
defense.
And you would need defense in order to get past one of those righties in any of those situations.
And I get super nervous about the defensive thing because we see this. We see these mental errors out there in the field right now in big moments. They had the jitters in that first game against the Twins. They had the jitters.
Now, here's the thing I was going to say a minute ago, because you bring up 2005, and you had a lot of guys on the 2005 team that did not have a lot of postseason experience. But what you did have is you had a manager who was an atmosphere provider. You had a manager who knew how to keep his players and his clubhouse loose and just go out there and having fun. And you saw the result. If Renteria is not going to be, if we're not keeping Renteria around based on his strategic in-game decisions and his lineups, which clearly we're not, because the lineups and the in-game decisions have been questionable at best since the word go. He's still doing things, and I'm just like, really?
Encarnacion in the 4 spot now?
Yeah, Encarnacion in the 4 spot.
And he is not, I mean, I know he's had a few hits here over the last week, but he has not performed in the 4 spot as well as he's performed down in the 6 spot.
Grandal in the 2 spot? Really?
Yeah. Why can't Luis Robert bat in the 2nd spot?
Right. So
why is he not available to bat in there?
You have these head scratchers, and you're just like, what the? Come on,
Imagine
really?
Robert with the protection of Abreu.
Oh, my God.
And that speed at the top of the order in front of Anderson.
Oh, geez.
I mean, can we at least try it against righties? Don't change your lefty lineup. You're undefeated against left-handed starters. But can we put Luis Robert in the 2 spot with Anderson in front of him and Abreu behind him just one time? And I liked it when Grandal was 3 and Abreu was 4. They actually performed better with that than at any other time. When they were the problem is they decided, okay, well, Moncada, he's struggling. We're not going to have him in the 2 spot anymore. So you took the 3-4 that was working for you.
And you moved it up.
Even against every metric said don't put Grandal and Abreu that high against righties. And you still did it. It was working.
Right.
And then you messed with it. You know, and I know we're in first place. I know that we're in the middle of something that's going very, very well. But you're right. There's head scratchers. Now, Merck on the show last Saturday, remember, it's on demand. Go back and listen to it. He did portray Renteria as being a guy that they love, the atmosphere that he brings.
He's an atmosphere provider.
And the fact that the players are comfortable and there's a lot of, they built this thing almost like we taught them how to be accountable, and now the older players teach the younger guys, which goes back to when Lopez came off the mound a few starts ago and Giolito met him, and he was talking to him about what he did right and what he did wrong before Renteria could get to him. So he has built an atmosphere. So he has that going for him. I'm not saying he's a bad manager.
No, because there are 2 types of managers. You have the strategists and you have the atmosphere providers.
I want both.
Well,
can't I get both?
You can. I mean,
why can't I have both, Dave?
Who's an example of both? Like, give me a name that would be. Give me a name that's both. Who's both a master. Strategist.
You didn't think Ozzie was a good strategist?
He wasn't a bad strategist, but he was more of an atmosphere provider. He leaned more to the atmosphere providing than he did to the in-game strategy.
Do you think Mike Scioscia brings good atmosphere? I always liked him as a strategist.
I don't know, because I've never really heard. I
get what you're saying.
I've never really heard.
I have to rack my brain to figure it out.
But
I have to rack my brain to figure it out. So I understand what you're saying.
I mean, but the point is that that's why they're keeping Renteria around. You hope that what you get is a team that comes into the playoff because of Renteria's atmosphere. You hope what you get in the playoffs is a team who is not nervous, who goes in there with the swag that they've shown all year going, yeah, you know what? Why not us? We can beat any of these teams on any given day. And they just go out there and they just do it. So you hope that's what you get.
Who do you think wins more World Series? The atmospheric manager or the strategic one? Because I would think the atmospheric guy could get lucky and win one if his team's so good they play over his strategic mistakes and everybody's just feeling it. And they just hit the perfect time when they get into the postseason. But if I have to look at long-time runs, like Bruce Bochy seems like he's more strategic. Joe Torre seemed more strategic. These are guys with multiple World Series. And
Well, I mean,
Joe
Torre, I think you're probably talking about a guy that, like, you were.
He was just handed a Cadillac, though, and given the keys, remember?
Yeah, there's that. And the fact that you're looking at probably a guy who is, about as good at providing an atmosphere as he is with his in-game strategies. I mean, don't you think that a guy like Torre is the complete package? Or do you think he just got the keys to the Lambo and went?
He did get Buck Showalter's, like, he got his car. Let's never forget that.
He's driving Buck's
kind of put it. He drove Buck's car. Dave, you have a business, and there's nothing small about the heart of your business. It's why employees aren't just employees, they're family. And New York Life can help you protect them like family. For 175 years, that's been the legacy of New York Life Insurance Company. And all I want you to do is call David Miller, Sox fan, your local New York Life agent. He can be reached at 773-957-3630 or at newyorklife.com. David's going to help you put your love into action for your business, your employees, and can even do it for your family too. 773-957-3630. David Miller from New York Life. And on the other hand, can you even blame Rick if you have a rough time in the postseason when he's essentially been given two legitimate postseason starters and doesn't even know who the third one is right now? Is it Cease? Is it actually Dane Dunning? Can they actually hold up in a moment like that? They might be able to, but they're completely unproven. I mean, Giolito's never done it before, but you at least believe that he can do it based upon his track record. And you don't even have a fifth starter right now as you limp. You are literally limping to the postseason when it comes to your pitching staff right now. You had Carlos Rodon getting better, and now another setback for Carlos,
Right.
That's sad. I feel bad for it, but at this point, I've lost all faith in Carlos Rodon.
He just can't stay healthy.
He can't stay healthy, and I just don't believe that he is a contributing member of this team in the long term going forward. And I was one of those people who was like, don't worry, he'll get back. I can't give up on him yet. But I mean, he really needs to prove it to me. And he shouldn't be upset about anybody saying that to him. Prove it. Prove you can stay healthy and play a season.
No, he knows.
Okay.
Of course.
Lopez is never going to be a starter. I think the team finally figured that out. They're done with that. You're going to get Kopech, you would expect now, back in 2021. But right now in this season, can you blame Renteria, even with his little idiosyncrasies, if he doesn't have the pitching behind him? I'm going to blame him if he makes dumb decisions like he doesn't warm up a relief pitcher, and it's like, what are you saving the guy for? Which I've seen him do that in big moments in games. Like, he's got a full bullpen, and he's just like, well, I figure so-and-so could take the fifth, so I'm not even going to have an extra guy going.
Well, you said it right.
It'll be interesting to see his in-game managing in playoff time.
You said it right there, though. I mean, as important as the bullpens have been in recent years, it's even more so now because your starters aren't going deep into games, and you have that extra guy in your bullpen. So even though he doesn't, maybe you only need to get 5 innings out of a Cease or a Dunning in order to still be able to win the game. You're right. I don't know. It is unfortunate that the White Sox had as many injuries in to their pitching staff as they've had this year. When I look at the injured reserve list, it's just like, man, love to have some of these guys now.
Wish I had a few of these guys available.
I know.
It really sucks. It's horrible.
The bummer thing.
Is there any way to Kopech and show him, be like, I feel better now about COVID. I want to play. Is there anything we can do about that?
The bummer thing, the Jace Fry thing, the Rodon thing, the fact that you were gonna get you thought you were gonna get Kopech this year, and then he's gone, and then he's gone completely off the boil.
Mid-July. What were we all doing? Every White Sox fan. Oh, we have so much pitching.
Yeah.
We have so much pitching.
Yeah.
You could have this starting pitcher take 3 innings. You could have this starting pitcher take another 3 innings. You could just like combine starters. Like, where are we going to put them all?
But to the credit of the management, I'm talking upper management now. You went into this season, which is with exactly what you needed to go into, which is a hell of a lot of pitching depth.
Right.
The reason why they are where they are right now is because they've had all these injuries, but it's just been like, okay, next guy up.
And I was okay with the idea that they didn't go crazy to go out and get like a big name pitcher if it was going to give away the future, because I still always believe 2020 was that year that was the bridge to contention. Not the actual year they were going to go win a World Series.
This is like you maybe win, you maybe win the wild card spot in a regular
right.
in a regular 162 game season.
Like, look how easy it was for me to take middling teams that are going to be in the middle of that 8-game set of teams in the American League and pull 4 of them and put them up against the White Sox. And the only one you felt really good about is if we get the Blue Jays. And you're nervous if you end up against the Astros and the Yankees. And you definitely have to be nervous against the Twins because they haven't been able to prove they can beat them in a 3-game set. You look at that in the first round and tell me, do you think that one player would have made all the difference and you would have just run through this whole thing and won a World Series with the Dodgers or the Padres waiting at the other end?
When I look at it, I'm probably not quite as nervous about the Astros as you are, just because of the Verlander thing, because you don't necessarily know if he's going to be back for the postseason.
I want them all to take a jump at a swimming pool before they go on the field, just to short out any electronic devices they have underneath their shirts.
Right.
That's what I want.
Right.
Look, I'm going to be pumped up. We're going to win the playoffs. It's going to be fun. Playoff baseball is going to be fun. I'm going to scream at the TV, and I'm just going to plead for them to pull off major moments and have some excitement. But in reality, I want them to get some experience. I want them to get over the jitters that they showed in that Twins series last week. I want them to start to realize they can play in big games and trust their talent a little bit. This is something that young teams go through, and they're going through it now. Get that so that I'm ready to go and take on the world in 2021. And I'm going to enjoy anything we get at this point, because we're going to the postseason, or I'm getting a new manager. I know that for sure, because there's no way that he don't make the postseason. He gets to stick around. So everything here is gravy.
It's something like a 99% chance the Sox make the postseason was the last I read.
Sit back and enjoy it, baby. You got any memorabilia you want to leave me?
I don't.
Nothing that you think is junk?
No, not anymore.
You sure that I can go get appraised?
Not anymore.
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.